I remember the first time they told me about the gate. I thought they were talking about some new experimental tech or classified military program. After all, Area 51 is notorious for that. But they weren't joking. The gate was real, and they were about to send me through it. The day I arrived at the base, I had no idea how much my life would change. I'd been hired as a security officer, an ordinary role, at least, that's what I thought. The first few weeks were uneventful. You'd think being at one of the most secretive places on Earth would have some level of excitement, but it was all paperwork and surveillance. It wasn't until that one night that everything flipped upside down. It was late, too late for any meaningful work, when I was summoned to the command center. I had a gut feeling something was off. A sense of dread washed over me as I stepped into the elevator, the steel doors closing with a hollow clang behind me. The air felt thicker than usual, as if the building itself was holding its breath. The flickering lights above cast eerie shadows across the walls, and the hum of the ventilation system sounded almost like a warning. Inside the command center, Colonel Samuels was waiting for me. She didn't offer the usual greeting, no handshake or pleasantries. Instead, she wasted no time. "You're being reassigned," she said, her tone flat and controlled. I raised an eyebrow. "Reassigned? I'm just a security officer." "Not anymore," she replied. "You've been selected for a special operation. You'll be briefed on everything once you're in the field. For now, your only priority is to follow orders." "Understood." I nodded, unsure of what I was getting into. Samuels stood and led me to a nearby corridor, a part of the base I'd never seen before. The walls were reinforced with steel, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic. We reached a large, unmarked door. It didn't look like anything special, but the presence of armed guards around it sent a clear message. This was no ordinary room. "Is this where I'm going?" I asked, trying to make sense of the situation. The colonel didn't answer. Instead, she pressed a button on the wall, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, there was a large circular chamber. At first glance, it looked like a high-tech lab, with servers, cables, and blinking lights. But in the center of the room, there was something far more extraordinary. It was a massive ring, an archway of sorts, hovering slightly above the ground. It shimmered with an otherworldly glow, like liquid silver in the dark. The edges of the ring pulsed with energy, and I could feel it in the air. It was like standing near a live wire, electric, vibrating, dangerous. I had no idea what I was looking at. "What the hell is that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "The gate," Samuels said, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "It's a portal to another world. And you, Private, are going to be the one to step through it." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," she replied. "We've been experimenting with it for years. Every time someone went through, they didn't come back. But we think we've found a way to reverse that. That's where you come in." I couldn't comprehend it. A portal to another world? It sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie. But I wasn't in a movie, and the fear creeping up my spine told me this was real. Too real. Before I could protest, Samuels motioned to a group of technicians standing by a console. They were monitoring the gate's readings, their eyes flicking between screens as the device hummed louder. It was about to open. I turned back to her, my heart racing. "What happens if I go through and don't come back?" She looked me dead in the eye. "You don't have a choice. We need someone to gather intel, and you're it. If you don't make it back, well, that's on us. But if you do, you'll be a hero." That was it. I had no say in the matter. They were sending me into the unknown, and my only mission was to survive and report back. A technician turned to us. "The gate's ready. We're initiating the sequence now." I stepped forward, my mind spinning. A strange force tugged at my chest as the gate powered up, its energy field intensifying. The air seemed to ripple in front of me, like the atmosphere itself was bending. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, taking a step toward the swirling vortex. It felt like being pulled in by an invisible hand, an irresistible force drawing me in. "Private, do you understand your mission?" Samuels asked. I nodded mechanically, my gaze locked on the glowing ring. gather intel and survive. Good luck, she said with a grim smile. Then, I stepped through. The moment I crossed the threshold, everything changed. The world around me twisted into a blur of light and shadow. It felt like I was falling, but not in any way I had ever experienced. Gravity seemed to have no control here. I was weightless, caught between two realities. My stomach churned, and I gritted my teeth, trying not to panic. But the sensation was overwhelming. The air around me crackled, and I saw flashes of images, strange landscapes, alien creatures, and bizarre structures flickering in and out of focus. I could feel the world around me tearing and reshaping, a disorienting kaleidoscope that made me dizzy. Then, as quickly as it had started, it stopped. I stumbled forward, landing hard on the ground. My hands scraped against rough soil, and I gasped for air. When I looked up, the first thing I saw was a sky unlike anything I'd ever known, dark, swirling clouds with streaks of violet lightning. The terrain around me was jagged, an alien desert with rocky outcroppings and twisted, lifeless trees. The air was thick, heavy, and smelled faintly of sulfur. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking beneath me. I was alone in this alien world, with no idea where to go or what dangers lurked in the shadows. But before I could take a step, I heard it, a low, guttural growl. My heart raced as I turned toward the source of the sound. Something was coming. That was just the beginning, and things were about to get much worse. The growl echoed through the alien landscape, sending a chill through my bones. I instinctively dropped to one knee, my eyes darting around the barren terrain, searching for the source of the sound. The world felt oppressive, every rock and twisted tree casting long, unsettling shadows. My pulse hammered in my ears as I strained to listen, trying to catch any movement, any clue of what was coming for me. Then I saw it. A shape, large, hulking, and moving fast, emerged from behind a cluster of jagged rocks. It was massive, easily 10 feet tall, with dark, leathery skin that seemed to absorb the dim light. Its body was bulky, covered in spiked armor-like plates that glinted in the flickering light from above. But what really caught my attention were the eyes, deep-set, glowing yellow, and burning with malice. Its teeth were long and serrated, and they gleamed like razors. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just any creature, it was a predator, and I was its prey. I scrambled to my feet, my military training kicking in as I scanned the area for an escape. There were no obvious safe routes, no cover. The landscape was too open. The only thing that stood between me and the creature was the rocky outcrop it had appeared from, and I wasn't about to trust that to protect me. I did the only thing I could think of, I ran. My boots pounded against the ground, each step sending small clouds of dust into the air. Behind me, I could hear the creature's footsteps, heavy, uneven, but impossibly fast. It was gaining on me. Its growls were getting louder, and I could feel its presence looming, like a dark storm behind me. I risked a glance over my shoulder, just in time to see the creature's massive form leaping toward me. I barely managed to dodge to the side, my breath catching in my throat as its claws scraped against the ground where I had just been. The creature snarled, spinning around to face me with terrifying speed. Instinct took over. I drew my sidearm, the cold metal feeling alien in my hand as I aimed at the beast. The gun's sights locked on the creature's chest, but I hesitated. I wasn't sure if regular ammunition would even affect it. I had no intel on the creatures of this world. For all I knew, this monster was impervious to bullets. The creature lunged again, and I fired, 3 shots, quick and desperate. The first hit it square in the shoulder, but the creature didn't slow. The second hit its side, but the beast didn't even flinch. The third shot grazed its jaw, leaving a bloody mark but no sign of stopping it. It let out a deafening roar, a sound that vibrated through my entire body. I didn't have time to reload. The creature was on me in a heartbeat, its claws slashing through the air. I dropped the gun, not caring where it landed, and dove for a large rock nearby, hoping to shield myself. The creature slammed into the rock, sending a shockwave through the ground that knocked me back. I gasped for air as I scrambled away, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure it could be heard across the alien world. It was faster than I was, stronger than I could handle. I needed a plan, and I needed it now. I pressed my back to the rock, trying to steady my breath, when I noticed something in the distance, a faint, flickering light. It wasn't far, maybe 100 yards, but it was a sign of life, or at least a structure. I couldn't afford to stay and fight this creature. I had to move, or I wouldn't make it out of this alive. With my heart in my throat, I bolted, running in the opposite direction of the creature. I heard its roar again, but I didn't dare look back. The light in the distance was all that mattered now. I didn't know how long I ran. The alien landscape seemed to stretch on forever, the horizon bending in strange angles. The air was thick and humid, and the ground beneath my feet seemed to shift unpredictably. I stumbled, my legs growing weaker with every step, but I forced myself to keep moving. That light, whatever it was my only hope. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached it. It was a structure, but nothing like I had ever seen. It was made of a smooth, metallic substance that shimmered faintly in the dim light. The walls of the structure seemed to ripple, as if the material was alive, constantly shifting and adjusting. The design was sleek, almost organic in nature, and it pulsed with a low, rhythmic hum that I could feel in my bones. I approached cautiously, my instincts screaming at me to be careful, but I had no choice. I needed shelter. The entrance was a narrow gap in the wall, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through. I hesitated for a moment, listening for the sounds of pursuit. The creature was nowhere to be heard, but I couldn't let my guard down. I slipped inside, ducking low to avoid making any noise. Inside, the air was cooler, and the walls seemed to shimmer with faint light. The place felt like a tomb, quiet, lifeless, but undeniably alien. As I ventured deeper, I came across a large chamber. At its center stood an enormous, cylindrical device, completely unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting in its precision and order. It looked like it could have been some sort of power core or energy generator, but there was no way to know for sure. I was about to investigate when I heard something, footsteps. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I wasn't alone. Slowly, I turned, my hand instinctively reaching for the empty holster on my hip. But I found nothing. The figure stepped out of the shadows, its movements slow but deliberate. It was humanoid, but its features were strange, alien. Its skin was smooth, translucent, glowing faintly with an ethereal light. Its eyes, however, were the most unsettling part. They were dark, nearly black, but they gleamed with an unnatural intelligence. There was no aggression in its stance, no hostility, but I could sense its power. It spoke in a language I couldn't understand, the words flowing like a strange melody. My heart pounded, but I held my ground. This was it, the first contact with whatever civilization existed here. But then, before I could react, the creature's eyes flashed. The ground beneath me trembled, and the lights in the chamber flickered violently. Something was happening, something I didn't understand. And I was no longer sure I was in control of my own fate. The alien figure stood before me, its eyes glowing with that unnerving, otherworldly light. Its skin was a translucent shimmer, almost as though it was made of the same material as the strange structure I'd stumbled into. The chamber hummed with an energy I could feel in my chest, vibrating like a tuning fork. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. The creature didn't speak again, but its gaze remained fixed on me. I could feel its intelligence, its awareness, as though it was scanning me, assessing me in ways I couldn't even fathom. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and every instinct I had screamed that this was not something I should be facing alone. Yet, I was alone. I had no choice but to stand my ground. I took a cautious step backward, my eyes never leaving the creature. "Who? What are you?" My voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper in the thick, strange atmosphere of the chamber. The creature's head tilted slightly, an almost human gesture of curiosity. It didn't respond in words, but its eyes glowed brighter, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw something change in its expression, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps a deep understanding of some kind. Then, with a movement so quick it was almost a blur, the creature reached out. Its long, spindly fingers extended toward me, not in aggression, but with an odd kind of purpose. I instinctively raised my arms, not sure if I should defend myself or simply step back. Before I could react, a sharp, electric pulse shot out from the creature's hand. I gasped as the energy slammed into me, a searing shock that shot through every nerve in my body. My muscles locked up, and I fell to my knees, my body convulsing involuntarily. The pain was unbearable, but it wasn't just physical, it was like my mind was being torn apart, stretched thin as the pulse seemed to invade my thoughts. The world around me spun wildly, and for a moment, I thought I was going to lose consciousness. But just as suddenly as it had started, the pulse stopped, leaving me gasping for air, my heart racing in my chest. I could feel the burn of it in my skin, my whole body trembling, but my mind was still intact. I blinked rapidly, trying to clear my vision. The creature was still there, but now it was standing slightly farther away, its hand lowered. It didn't seem to be threatening me anymore, but the silence between us was deafening. Its eyes were no longer glowing brightly, but instead, they seemed pensive. The hum in the chamber grew louder, more insistent. A new sound joined it, a rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat, echoing through the walls. The ground beneath me trembled again, and I felt something shifting in the air, something dangerous, something beyond my comprehension. I got to my feet slowly, every muscle screaming in protest. The creature didn't stop me, but its gaze followed my every move, its eyes now filled with something that almost looked like pity. Before I could make sense of it, the floor beneath me cracked open with a loud, grinding noise. A deep chasm appeared, stretching from one side of the chamber to the other. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. Something massive was rising from the depths of the earth. I could feel the ground shaking violently, and the sound, it was like the roar of an ancient beast, something primordial. The creature, whatever it was, stepped back, as if acknowledging the arrival of something far more powerful than itself. I glanced down at the growing fissure in the floor, my instincts screaming at me to run, to get as far away from whatever was coming. But before I could make a move, a towering figure emerged from the depths. It was enormous, easily 20 feet tall, its body an amalgamation of strange, armored plates and glowing tendrils that seemed to stretch and retract like living roots. Its face was a grotesque mask of jagged, sharp features, with eyes that burned like molten lava. It wasn't just a creature. It was something else entirely. Something far beyond the scope of anything I had ever seen. My heart stopped as I realized what I was looking at, a god of this world, or something close to it. A being of pure, raw power. The massive creature let out a low, resonant growl, and the chamber trembled with the force of its voice. The alien figure in front of me took a step back, as if acknowledging its superiority. I didn't wait for the battle to unfold. Panic surged through me, and I turned, sprinting toward the nearest exit. My mind raced, trying to calculate my chances of survival. The world outside the structure felt alien, hostile, but I couldn't stay in here, not with that thing moving in. I needed to get back to the gate. I needed to find a way home, back to Earth. I didn't look back as I ran, my feet pounding against the floor. The world outside was a blur, the sky swirling with violet lightning. But as I reached the entrance, I heard something that stopped me in my tracks. The sound of footsteps, human footsteps, echoed in the distance. I turned, my heart hammering, praying it wasn't some more monstrous creatures closing in. But as I squinted into the haze, I saw movement, figures, 2 of them, approaching. They were dressed in similar gear to mine, though their faces were obscured by helmets. I rushed forward, adrenaline surging. "Hey!" I called out, my voice hoarse. "Who are you? Are you from Earth?" The 2 figures didn't respond, their movements stiff, almost robotic. One of them raised a hand, and I saw a flicker of light, an energy pulse, before the figure collapsed to the ground in a heap. My heart sank. Before I could react, a massive shape emerged from the shadows behind them, another of the towering creatures, moving with terrifying speed. It lunged forward, grabbing the fallen figures with its massive hands. The 2 human soldiers didn't stand a chance. I froze, my blood running cold. This world was far worse than I'd ever imagined. The creatures here were not just predators, they were apex hunters, and they ruled with an iron grip. I turned and ran again, not knowing what the hell I was doing but knowing one thing for certain: I had to survive. There was no way I could fight these things on my own. But I needed to find answers, to figure out how to use the gate before it was too late. My breath came in ragged gasps as I sprinted across the desolate alien landscape. My mind raced, heart pounding in my chest. The human soldiers were dead, torn apart by those monstrous creatures. I couldn't allow myself to think about it. Not now. Not if I wanted to survive. The gate. I had to get back to the gate. It was the only way out of this nightmare. But as I ran, the air grew thick with an unsettling pressure. The sky above me, once an otherworldly purple, shifted, its swirling clouds darkening further. Something was happening. Something I couldn't control, couldn't even comprehend. I kept running, the sound of my footsteps a desperate rhythm in the growing silence. The ground trembled beneath my feet, the remnants of the massive creature's emergence still vibrating through the earth. The hum in the air had changed, too, now a low, discordant tone that seemed to reverberate through my bones. I reached the edge of the strange structure, the metallic walls shimmering in the eerie light. But something wasn't right. The entrance where I had first entered was gone. In its place stood an impenetrable barrier, a shimmering field of energy that pulsed with an alien force. I slammed into it, my hands pressed against the cool surface, but the barrier resisted me, pushing me back like I was nothing more than an insect. No. No, no, no. I frantically searched around, looking for another way. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle of this alien world. I had to get to the gate, had to find a way back to Earth. But the path I'd taken had disappeared. I was trapped. A voice broke through my frantic thoughts. Private. I froze. The voice wasn't familiar, but it was clear. And it was coming from somewhere behind me. I turned slowly, my heart skipping a beat. There, standing in the shadows, was the alien figure, the one I had encountered earlier. It was watching me, its glowing eyes still filled with that strange, unreadable emotion. It stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. "You do not belong here," it said in perfect English. The words were hollow, lacking any warmth, but they made something cold coil in my stomach. "You should never have crossed the threshold." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. What was this creature? And why was it speaking to me now? My thoughts were fragmented, disconnected. My body felt heavy, as though the gravity of this place had increased tenfold. "Why are you doing this?" I finally managed to ask, my voice hoarse. "Why am I here?" The creature didn't answer right away. Instead, it took another step closer, its gaze never leaving mine. For a long moment, it studied me, as though contemplating its next words. "You are here," it said at last, "because we have made a mistake. A terrible mistake. And you," it paused, and I could feel its gaze intensifying. "You were chosen to be our undoing." "Undoing?" I repeated, confusion mixing with fear. "What the hell does that mean?" The creature sighed, an almost human sound. "You are from another world. One we did not foresee. One we cannot control." Its eyes flickered, and I saw something shift in its expression. Anger? Fear? It was hard to tell. The gate was not meant for you. You should not have crossed through. But now that you have, the balance has been disturbed. And there is no turning back. I stepped back, my mind reeling. I thought I was just a soldier, a pawn in some high-stakes game, sent to gather information. But this was something else entirely. "You're saying, this is all my fault?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The creature's expression softened, almost regretful. "Not your fault. But your presence here is a catalyst. The gate has brought you into a world on the brink of destruction. The balance between our worlds is delicate, and you have broken it." I shook my head, disbelief clawing at me. "What do you mean? What's going to happen?" The creature's eyes flared with a sudden intensity. "If you remain here, the rupture between the worlds will only grow. The gate will remain open, and the destruction will spread. It will consume everything, this world, your world, and every world in between." I took a step back, panic rising in my chest. "How do I stop it?" The creature paused, its gaze shifting to the ground. You cannot stop it. But you can leave. You can return to your world. There is a chance, a slim chance, that you can close the gate from your side. You will have to act quickly, before the rift widens beyond repair. I was reeling, trying to process what it was saying. There was a way back? A way to fix this? But what about the gate? What about these creatures? What about? Will they come after me? I asked, my mind racing. The creature's eyes dimmed. They will follow you. They will stop at nothing to prevent the gate from closing. But you must go. Before it is too late. I turned, my mind spinning, my legs like lead as I tried to make sense of everything. I didn't know if I could do this, if I could really fix the damage I had caused by just stepping through a portal. But I had no choice. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Before I could move, the creature's voice stopped me. One more thing. I turned back, eyes wide, waiting. Once the gate is closed, you will not remember. You will return to your world as if nothing ever happened. The memories will be erased. It is the only way to ensure the rift is sealed. A sense of dread washed over me. I could feel it now, the weight of the decision, the cost of what I was about to do. To save my world, I had to forget everything that had happened here. Everything I had seen. Everything I had fought for. But if that was what it took to save Earth, I would do it. I nodded slowly. I understand. The creature seemed to acknowledge my decision, its expression softening. Go. Time is running out. Without another word, it stepped back into the shadows, and the ground beneath my feet began to shift. The hum in the air grew louder again, vibrating through my chest as the walls of the structure flickered and flickered. The gate, the one I'd crossed through to get here, was closing. I ran, heart pounding, towards the fading portal. I stepped through the gate one last time, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the cold floor of the command center at Area 51. The sterile walls, the humming machines, all of it felt surreal, as though it had been a dream. But the memories of the alien world, the creatures, the catastrophe that had almost destroyed both worlds, they were gone, wiped from my mind like a dream upon waking. I got up slowly, blinking as I tried to shake off the confusion. The gate had closed. The balance had been restored. And yet, as I looked around, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was a faint buzzing sound in the air, like a warning. Somewhere, deep inside me, I knew the gate wasn't gone for good. It had been sealed, for now. But it was only a matter of time before the rift opened again. And when it did, I would be ready,